Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new episode of the True Spectrum Project. Today's video slash podcast is going to be a little bit different from our previous videos. We do not have any guests. It's just me sharing some of my experiences with regard to one of our project's values. Just as a reminder, our three core values are thoughtfulness, tolerance, and synergy, TTS. And I would like to share some thoughts that I have on the first one, which is thoughtfulness. Generally, this project was created based on my personal values as well, and based on one of the biggest issues I see in the world, which is lack of understanding among people, not just of different backgrounds, sometimes from the same background, within people, within countries. And I think it is something that can be solvable, especially in a country which is very diverse and in a country where you can actually access not just sources of information, but actually like the primary sources of information, which are people, and can talk and discuss. For me, however, it's not just about discussion. It's also about what you take from it. For example, if you watched our first two episodes, the story of home and the story of determination, can you just now take a couple of seconds and remember some of the lessons which people shared there about intercultural communication? It can be that it's hard for you to remember, even though I think that lessons shared were very profound. And normally for me, it's the same, be it a lecture, an interview, a YouTube video, whenever I just watch it, or even someone's stories, whenever it's just like, one way, I just watch it, I think, oh yeah, it's a good point. And then I close the window or finish the video and go and switch to something else. I normally do not remember much. And for me, it's a problem because I like to see the return on my investment, the return on time that I invested. And normally the return should be that I remember something and that actually it has a positive influence on my life, or at least it opens a new perspective in my life, which makes me more aware and just brings me something new. And that's why I reflect a lot. And that's why I think that the core for this project to really benefit from it is not just familiarize yourself with different stories, but also to immerse yourself in them by reflecting. And just to show you why a reflection is important, let's take from the first sight really unrelated example. So can you please describe what you see on this picture? For our podcast listeners, it's just an apple, like a normal apple you see in your life. How would you describe it? Just 5 bullet points. Just take a couple of seconds and write down, or just in your notes or on paper, what you see on the picture or what comes to your mind when you think about an apple. Okay, so chances are that you all have different words or associations written. Probably some of you who prefer more descriptive style or who think in more descriptive terms would have words like red, round. Some people might write tasty, but there are also people who think a bit more figuratively and would write like Adam and Eve or Garden from My Childhood. There are also people who will probably write the mix of them. Maybe there are people who will lack some imagination or lack just ideas what to write about an apple and will just write like 3 bullet points. So normally your views on an apple would be different. An apple is something pretty simple, something which is very far from intercultural communication and very far from people sharing their stories. It's not that complex, but just because you put your perspective into it, it becomes different for every one of you who did this exercise. Of course, there are people with similar views and similar words, similar bullet points about an apple. But if we talk about someone's story, if we talk about the whole world, if we talk about the perspectives, it's rarely the case that two people will have exactly the same view. And it's also rarely the case that your story, the story you are sharing, will be perceived in the same way you share it. And I think this is the blessing and the curse. On the one hand, for intercultural communication, diversity of opinions is important. On the other hand, it's a challenge because no matter what you feel and how much energy it costs you to share the story and how much desire you have for your story to be perceived in a way you want it to be perceived, people can still have different views of it. People can still interpret it differently. They can take different lessons from it. For example, there is a conformity bias where they will just like pick a little point from your story and to confirm their own narrative, and you should be ready for it. And we should be ready for it when we discuss complex topics. And I think that reflection is actually the key, because reflection helps you to challenge your biases. Reflection helps you to not only understand another person's story more deeply, but also understand how you react to it. Especially if we talk about the project where we actually have interview, which you can rewatch sometimes if you want, and where the words are not just lost and you don't just like listen to it, make an assumption, go on. You can come back to it, you can come back to what people think, you can actually be like you have this documentation of someone's story. And if you want to do a really deep reflection, you can listen to it multiple times. For example, for me, when I'm doing the whole work with transcribing interview, publishing it, reflecting on it, just for my own personal benefit, but also for Instagram posts, which provoke reflection and summarize the key points. I every new time I hear the story, I take something new from it. And it is hard because you never feel like your knowledge and understanding of it is completed, but it's also nice because you can actually learn. It's a lifelong journey and you can learn to enjoy it. And I actually think that reflecting just a little bit can bring an immense benefit. Normally, if you listen to one interview, it takes you 1 hour. And I truly believe that in this 1 hour, you may be getting half of the benefit than if you spend additional 30 minutes on reflection. Like just a couple of minutes after the interview to digest, maybe also during the interview, pausing it from time to time to write down all some of the insights which are very important to you, and then just putting your own opinion. How did I react to this information? Was it, if I'm related to this story in any way, maybe if the person is from my home country, do I have the same experience, or do I think it's different? It's also fine, because our project is not about one source of truth. And for me, for example, in the past, I would somehow be inclined to believe what other people believe. And I think especially in the very uncertain times when you cannot really decide what's right, what is wrong, you might tend to be like, oh, this person sounds very convincing, maybe it's true. And then if you reflect, you can challenge your opinion. You can be like, oh, is it really true? Maybe this person is generalizing here a bit. Maybe I met someone else who has a different perspective, or maybe I experienced myself something that contradicts the story. Maybe her story is true, but mine is also true. And there are actually multiple ways, multiple levels where you can uncover new insights and make your journey more deep. Also, especially if you like the advice people share on intercultural communication and discussions, do I apply this advice or does it just sound nice? Because normally cliches like, yeah, ask how are you in a deeper sense, it sounds nice, but do we actually do it in our life? And I think that if we challenge our assumptions, if we challenge our views of the world, if we challenge our perception of the interview, if we challenge our own thoughts, and if we ask ourselves, what can I take from this interview? What do I actually want to change in my life? Do I actually want to figure out more about one of the events? Do I want to reach out to my friends from this country and ask them to share some new information, share their opinion on this? Do I want to continue this discussion, or do I think that it's not really an area of my interest? I think this all, it teaches us critical thinking, and it makes the interview material more useful for us, because it's not just, oh yeah, I heard some people say this, but it's like, oh, I engaged with this material. I put my perspective on it. I challenged my perspective as well, and I actually benefited. I have new insight. So let me share a little bit about the structure of today's video and where all these considerations will bring us. At first, I will share about my personal experience with reflection, not just within the project, but generally in my life. And as I mentioned, project is really related to my life. And actually, I think the project is born because of reflection, because I wanted more people to experience what I experience when I actually can solve the issue with just pen and paper. And this profound feeling of deep reflection and the insights you get out of it, I think it's actually one of the best feelings in the world. And it just feels like you can see this world from so many different new perspectives, and it is a feeling I wanted all people to experience, and that's why I created the project. The second part is going to be related to the project, actually, why it is important to reflect on the people's stories. And the third part would be the reflection about the last two episodes. And also I will share a tool which I created for the project to help you implement this value in your life. Maybe only starting from this project, but also maybe if you got inspired or got interested in other areas of your life, in other discussions maybe, or other experiences. So let's get started. So for me, reflection is related to one of my passions, which is writing. I started to write back in school, actually when in the primary school, and it was something wonderful because this was like the first hobby probably, which would give me the feeling of flow. And I never really reflected very deeply on my life, but I think I reflected on many things, which were like topics of my little poems or my little texts, which I would write. And it actually helped me a lot, I think, to just make sense out of many things. Here I would also like to share a little bit about my volunteering journey, which started in the youth organization Można, where I was in the marketing field. I was doing content marketing mostly, and I developed my own project. And then my second experience was when I already moved to Germany. It was in the ISAC in Germany organization. And it was actually something that shaped me a lot in many aspects, but reflection was one of them. I had many, so to say, culture shocks in the organization because it was nothing I'm used to. It was very different. It placed a lot of value on the social aspect of volunteering and not just getting things done. And I think it also placed a lot of value on reflection. Whenever we would have some meetings or some events, we would always have this debrief part, which took a lot of time, and where we would persistently be asked, what did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about your team? Which insights are you gonna implement in the future about the teamwork? Which lesson did you find the most useful? What were your failures? What were your successes? There were many questions normally, many overlapping questions. And I would always be like, no, this is something weird. This is something kind of irrational. It's just repeating same stuff all over again. Insights are not even that interesting. For example, me as a team player, yes, maybe I expect people to be more punctual. Okay, what kind of lesson is that? But event after event, experience after experience, I started to notice that even some small details and big details and many behaviors I'm observing in myself and in others started to make sense. It felt like magic, but it wasn't magic. It was persistent reflection, which was done over and over again, which in the moment seemed like nothing, but in the long term accumulated and actually showed me the importance. Even if the insights you generate in the reflection process do not sound nice, or sound trivial, or sound boring, or like do not seem to bring benefit, in the long term they will. And it's not the insights, it's not about the insights, it's about the skill of making sense out of your experiences, the skill of living this life fully and not superficially. And I think this was something life-changing for me. And in total, over the past 4 years, I worked in 5 nonprofit organizations. And only this first nonprofit organization, youth organization, Možno, is the one where I still feel like I missed the big part because I did not reflect in the moment. Of course, I reflected in the hindsight, but not in the moment, and it actually made a difference. And I'm very grateful that I learned the skill to reflect, because also, especially in the Berlin arrival support, when you come back from your volunteering shift, your mind is just exploding with so many events, because for me it was a mix of personal and professional. It was about people like refugees who arrived. It was about volunteers as well. It was about random encounters. It was such a multifaceted experience. And I would always, no matter how tired I am, I would document it. And I still have like this folder where I wrote all the stories, or most of the stories I've been through. And I realized that sometimes I wouldn't feel enthusiastic about writing them down. But whenever I come back to them and I read them, I find more insights than I had in the moment. But also the fact that I wrote them down makes it so profound, because it was actually me taking what I lived through and learning from it. Not just going, rushing through, but documenting. Also, all of my volunteering experiences, they were accompanied by studies and work, like not voluntary work, but a student assistant position or intern position. And I never actually had this a lot of time to reflect on them. It was always rushing through. But at some point, just rushing through brings you no benefit. And that's what I learned in ISAC. That's because I saw how much the small actions, how much benefit they bring. And that's what I implemented in my professional life as well. In the voluntary work, especially, because I think this is more eventful work than normally, and it's actually shaping me, especially because I'm choosing projects and things to work on which align with my values and beliefs and with who I am, and which actually help me to become the person I want to become. So let's switch to reflection as a tool which you can actually use to benefit from the True Spectrum project, which is created based on all of these experiences. Because also, if you like everything, basically everything I mentioned is related to it. the experiences with a Russian invasion of Ukraine, the experiences of my volunteering experiences, also Isaac, because Isaac is about leadership, and I finished my Isaac journey, became a creator of this project. So let's discuss why is thoughtfulness important in this project. I think we touched on many points already, but just to summarize them, first of all, it's a deeper understanding. It's a deeper understanding of what people are telling you. Because, for example, if the person tells you their country of origin, on the one hand, your mind can paint some stereotypical images, and on the other hand, your mind can paint actually the values of the country and the experiences the person is going through, and the strength, and the culture and traditions, and it's your choice. And just having this deeper understanding of the story, and not just snippets of it that confirm what you already know, is actually very valuable, and is actually something that you cannot do without reflecting. Because as I mentioned, normally our brain has its own way of operation, and it's hard to break it unless you are very mindful. I think it's very hard, maybe not. From my perspective, it's very hard to just listen to 1 hour interview and remember things you never knew before. Normally, your mind pays more attention to what is familiar and what complements what you already know. And the sense of it is to build a true spectrum, which means to expand what you already know. And I think reflection is the best tool for it. The second point is that reflection helps you challenge your biases. It's related to what I already said. It's also related to the fact that normally we tend to generalize. We say, oh, this country is this, that country is that. But is it actually true? If the person is sharing this experience, which contradicts what I already generalized in my mind, maybe it's not really true. And maybe if I'm thinking, oh, this person is just an exception, maybe I still have this bias. Should I research this area more? Should I use what the person shared as a resource, like the film or the organization? Should I familiarize myself more with this area and get to know, is it really true? Is it like statistically proven, this assumption? Or maybe I have a bias here. And I think that reflection is the best tool for it, because it's not about black or white. It's not like, oh, I have a bias, I'm a bad person. No, it's about, I have a bias, I'm working to change it, I'm a good person. I'm someone who wants to learn, I'm someone who is curious. And that's the beauty of reflection. You actually learn, and you learn from your mistakes. There is no bad experience which you cannot learn from and benefit from. Every experience is valuable for reflection. The third benefit of using reflection when familiarizing yourself with other people's stories is because it creates a lasting impact. If you actually allow your true spectrum to expand, you initiate the thinking process. You use the new information when engaging in discussion with other people. You notice new information when reading articles, or there is this like selectivity bias also when, for example, you learn new language and you just learned a new word and you start noticing it in a video, in a speech of your friend, in an article. And the same is with new information which you use to complement your true spectrum. You start noticing it. You expand your true spectrum further just because of making this one step to reflect and to accept this new information. And it actually helps you. Then you spread this views to your friends, to your family. Maybe you share on social media. Maybe you make a project about it. Maybe you choose this area as an area of your research, and it makes a lasting impact. It's not just, oh, I watched the video, I'm done, great, and then I forgot half of it and just remembered stuff which I already knew before. So I just think that reflection is like something that is so useful in this regard. As the third part of this episode, I would like to remind ourselves of the two lessons which we could have taken from the two previous interviews of the True Spectrum project.
It's difficult when you start a discussion with someone from pointing out that this person is wrong and this person has to listen to you. It's not gonna work. And that's something I realized as well while talking to people, while talking to my grandmother, talking to people with different opinions. And I think only by listening to this opposite opinion, by listening to, just like listening, not even like discussing or trying to prove something, just listening to them, it also shapes your own opinion and also helps you, I don't know, to see, as you also mentioned, to see the world through they view. That's something I think I found very, very helpful.
It's really difficult because sometimes you don't know those people's backgrounds, and yeah, I learned a lot about this communication also during volunteering, because there were different people from different places from Ukraine. We met people from Mariupol, from Bucha, Irpin, right after the occupation of Kiev region, and yeah, they were fleeing to Germany. Also, some people from more or less peaceful parts of Ukraine, and you never know what's the story behind of the person. So in those situations, sometimes it's just good just to listen and not to ask too many questions, and people will share if they want. And sometimes it's just enough to ask whether those people are okay or not. And by this question, you have to really mean this question.
So two amazing advice have been shared, and they might sound cliche, but actually cliche is the biggest wisdom, because we all know, for example, that health is priority, but we figure out the true value of health when we are sick. And this cliche plays absolutely zero role in our life when something else seems more important. So we all might know that actually we are equal when we talk in intercultural communication, when we share our perspectives, but we still might feel like our opinion might be more true because I lived through it. But did another person also, doesn't another person have same I lived through it view? Like, this is the bias we should challenge here. And this is the beauty of reflection, when you actually go into your memory or go into your notes, or just put this thought into your mind and go into the world with this thought. You spot whenever you feel like, oh, I'm actually more educated in this regard right now than this person. I think only my opinion is true. I think I should teach this person. I should change this person's view. Do I really need, like, you should ask yourself, is it correct? Do I want to follow this? Or maybe I want to follow the advice which Yohani shared. The same thing is with questions you ask but may not have capacity to listen to answers to. You can reflect if you were always this friend who would listen to the answer to how are you till the end, or who would be like, oh yeah, by the way, I have this and this and in my life, and maybe let's talk about something else because the topic you are sharing is too complicated or not really what I wanted to hear when I asked you how are you, even though I know that maybe your life is impacted by this and this event. This sounds very nice in words, this advice, but do we actually use them in our daily lives? And I think that just reflecting would help, because even if you spend 15 minutes writing down your thoughts and then close your notebook and never come back to it again, it will plant a seed in your mind. It will plant a new seed in your mind with new perspective, with expanding what you already know. And you will start noticing the same as with learning a new word. You normally write it in your notebook, close the notebook, and may not come back to it again, but you will notice. you will start noticing it in in different materials, in conversations, in videos. So these are my insights on this topic, and this is how I see reflection being implemented in the true spectrum so that you could truly benefit from the work we are doing here. And in order to help you, I actually created a checklist with questions which you can ask yourself after watching an interview. You can download it in the link below, and I really hope that it will be useful for you and it will help you to expand your true spectrum. And please, whenever you have any insights which you think are worth sharing, feel free to also share them in the comments or on our Instagram page, because synergy is also one of our values. And do not forget the second value, which is tolerance. And I think that in this way, we can actually all contribute to the world where everyone feels heard, understood, and valued. So let's create the true spectrum together and learn to expand it.